Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's September 5th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And short week this week. Believe it or not, it's already Thursday. No chart lessons on Friday, so this is going to wrap up our week. Quick look at the daily chart. You can see that we had more down selling today. We did recover. There was a lot of mixed trading along with it too. But we did have a pretty good sell-off at one point, so pretty nice trend down. Uh, it's really hard. I mean, prices are just they don't want to. What happens is when we rally, the rallies meet selling, but the selling does not. They can't sustain it. So maybe we're running out of steam here to the downside, and we're going to bounce back again. It's hard to say still. We could just continue to work sideways a little bit. I feel like we need a rally at least back to test this before we could go lower. And I still suspect that we're going to retest this high, this all-time high here as well. There's just a lot of craziness going on with the economy. The economy's, they're having a really hard time maintaining the economy without dropping the rates. And I think they're talking about dropping the rates, but I think it's too early. I think that's going to create more problems, but at least maybe that'll get them through the election. I think that's their goal, is to keep this thing propped up through the election. That's generally what every administration does when they're about to, uh, during an election year. They want to keep the market propped up so it looks like they've got a good economy and that things are humming and they're keeping everybody happy, and that tends to be their goal. But I think things are with all the inflation that we have and the problems that we're having with the economy, the problems with the job market, the loss of jobs, all the jobs going overseas and so forth. I think they're really struggling with how to maintain control on this thing and keep it propped up. So the one thing about it, if they do keep this thing propped up through the election, at some point it could come crashing down unless there's some big change, unless we can get Trump back in office or something like that. The market may hold up long enough for him to get the economy stimulated again. But we'll just have to see. This is all conjecture. Don't listen to the news. Don't believe anything you see or hear. Pay attention to the price action. I'm just kind of telling you what my experience from doing this from a lot of years is that they do tend to try to prop this thing up and keep it going during an election years. And the election is less than 60 days, probably 60 days away, maybe less than 60 days now. So not much time to go. So they've just got to hang on a little bit longer until they can get reelected. Then who knows what's going to happen then. The bottom may fall out of this thing at that point because it's just hard to say. But then again, if we can get the Republicans back in office and they start lowering taxes and stimulating the economy again, maybe we can get it rolling again. Get gas down cheaper again. I know Trump will work on that quickly if he gets reelected, so that could save the market. So we'll just have to see. But anyway, let's. You can see it's pretty much a mixed day, and we did close down, but it's a really mixed day today. But let's flip over to the 2,000 tick chart. Take a look at it. Go through the trades. A lot of good trades today. It was a lot of good setups today, so it was a little different in that aspect. But let's flip over there and take a look. And here it is. There were a couple of news items today. There was a couple right at 7:15, 7:30, and then a 9 o'clock one. So really, you had to kind of hold off until after that 7:30 news to really start trading this morning. But you can see we had a couple of good trades on the way up, and then we had a bunch on the way down, and we had a lot down here in this range area. So as far as trading days goes, there's quite a few good setups today, is the way I'd like to see it. But you can see the range. This was the original range here. We broke out the top and failed. And when we didn't get a measured move to the top side, which would be this blue line, that's a good indication that we may go a good bit in the other direction. You see we made a measured move to the other side. We did rally back about half of that, but we could not sustain it. And they gave back a little bit of that before the close. So this red line was the close of yesterday, and we couldn't really rally back above that. So Uh, that's the gist of the day. This was a really good trend down though, and then there were quite a few trades down here. But let's zoom in here. We'll go through these trades and we'll wrap this day up and we'll wrap this week up. But 7 o'clock, again, we had a 7:15 and a 7:30, so just kind of sit tight until after those are over. And so really by 7:35 or something, things were kind of back to normal. There was a second entry long here because you could count that as a new high. And so you get a first entry, second entry. But that signal bar is no good. If you had a good signal bar there confirming that trend line, by all means take that trade. But that's not a very good setup on my chart. And of course we run up and then we correct. And there's clearly two legs back, a clear second entry right off the key entry point with a nice reversal type bar. I like going long there. That's a no-brainer. We run up to the other side again. Then we start correcting back. There was a second entry long here, but look at that congestion. Be real careful with these. I didn't see anything that would make me want to go long there. And if you actually tried to go long on that second entry out of that congestion, well, you got stopped out. And there's enough room there to get out, but you got to pay attention to this little. By the time this triggered, that's clear congestion. And you can clearly see it actually started over here. There's good support there, but there's also resistance across there. And there's just not room to scalp out. There's plenty of room to this one. And normally you would worry about this one more than this one, but this is not really a move up. This is just sideways, and it's real clear. Everything's inside this bar right here for the most part. So just sit tight. Wait on something better than that. And we get a close outside. It's not a super convincing close, but it's there. And then we turn down right here, right where we've already turned down multiple times. We close back inside. I didn't like this one because we made a higher high. You may still take that trade because we have tested that several times there. It is at least a triple test. That's the overnight highs there. So there's a good chance we'll at least come back to the EMA there. And if this was a close outside, we could reverse. I just don't think that's a convincing enough when they're probably going to try to test it again. And you can see that ends up happening. But maybe you take that trade. It's not an ideal trade because we did make a higher high there. We do close back inside. A couple of the problems, there's probably enough room to scalp out back to this trend line. But if it bounces off this breakout area here and turns back up, you probably don't have enough room to scalp out there. Or there's no probably to it. You don't, and you could be in trouble. But it does. It runs all the way down, and you get a first entry, then it backs up again, and you get a second entry when it breaks above this bar, and it's like 8 ticks. I mean, very tiny bar compared to, especially for what we've had lately. I like that setup. Now, this is a little congested, but you can expect prices to retest that. There's plenty of room to get out here. And so I like that trade. It runs on up, and you see we do start to find resistance here, but you still got this trend channel in play, and it does end up pushing through, comes back, but you just don't really get a setup here. It keeps pushing higher. There are 2 legs back here, but the signal bar is not good enough. It's not a second entry technically by the counts either. And you can see it pushes one more time up, and then it turns down again. So in the end, I think this is just another retest of the highs. I don't think that's a convincing enough close outside. I think this is still part. And here you get your break, convincing break, and then a retest. That one's tempting right there, but that's the first break of this channel, and you may get a retest, which we end up getting it. We get a big correction first, but we do get a retest of that before things sell off. So I don't think you want to try to get short that early. Maybe on a lower high, which you might. I mean, that hasn't moved that far. This is a possibility. I mean, there is some sideways action there, but there's not that no-bodied bar that's like a doji or whatever that you often get with congestion. So I think you could safely take that trade right there, and you can see it does take on off. I'll mark it green. It's not an ideal setup, but I think it's close enough that you could take that if you wanted to. And you can see it doesn't quite make a high either. That's the other problem. There's one tick there, but I think that's close enough, and it does close lower, and it's very, very bearish. So this probably suckered in some more longs here. So, and you can see they all had to exit, and boom, at the bottom drops out. There is also a second entry here, and it's another possibility, but there's just not much room there. It's definitely congested. It does close back inside. There is a little bit of stem. It's another one you could argue for green. There's always probably one or two that I don't mark that you know, it might look slightly different on your chart, and you might could argue for them to be green. We talk about, I usually mention that, but you know, just because I don't mark it green doesn't mean you couldn't make an argument for it. It just your chart might be slightly different. I mean, you could have had a very bearish bar there, and you might have had a smaller bar there, and then that would make total sense to take a second entry short there. But it just looks a little sideways and congested there on my chart. And of course, it fails pretty quickly, but you would have got your scalp out of it before it fails, and it turns up, and we're racing higher again to retest this high. And you can see we do make a new high, and you get a close outside the new high all in one there. I wouldn't go short yet. Wait and see if you get something else. You do get a lower high here. Big bearish bar. The problem with the reason I marked this one green is it's just a first entry, and we did move a good bit here, although we did come back, so it's close to those highs, and it is a lower high. So I think you could take that trade as a lower high. I just don't think it's a perfect setup. And then you get a failed second entry long here and turns down, and when it breaks lower there, that's a second entry short because we got a new low here. There's a swing low there. This is a new one, so first entry, second entry. And unfortunately, this one doesn't take off, and you probably don't get a runner on it, but it does end up moving. There's a hidden second entry here. I don't think you should take that trade. If you draw your micro channel, you know, there's no close outside of it or anything. So and there's no confirmation of that down trend line yet. So you're just kind of shooting in the wind trying to go short there, to be honest. It turns out to be a great move down. And then you get two legs back right here, and you do get a second entry that triggers when it turns past that bar. This one actually broke higher, so you get a 1, 2, 3 triple test. Pretty bearish bar. I think you got to wait for this bar to close, and if it closes bearish, you can go short there, and you can see it take off. Runs down the lows and bounces back. We work all the way back to the trend line. You get a close outside, and it tries 3 times there to go higher, and it closes back inside that trend line. I think you can trade that as a double top right there, lower high, boom. It's just technically not lower because it does make a new high, but that means this played out right here. You get the break and a new high, and so I like going short right there. And you can see that's a pretty good move down. Then you get a very clear second entry short with a nice signal bar. Definitely take that one. Again, you don't get a runner there. It's a shame that some of these best setups don't give any runners, but there's actually another second entry there. By that time, that looks really congested, really sideways. I think you have to sit tight. It does end up working down, and then notice you have a hidden second entry here, but there's no break of that channel. No, that's the first close outside, so we're probably going to still try to make a new low. But I would wait on something better. I'd wait on, see if you try to get an attempt at a retest, and you do, and it makes a lower high there. Now it is a little sideways here, but you've at least tried to go higher 3 times. I like that one. You're just trying to get a scalp here. You're not really going to try to get a runner here. Comes back and tests it again. Another big bearish bar. I like it. And then it comes back yet again. Same thing. It keeps trying to go lower, and finally it pushes down, makes a new low, and it actually pushes down one more time. Unfortunately, you don't get another good setup here. That one's tempting, but it never breaks lower. And then now you got your breaking new high, but you don't have a very good signal bar. If you had a good signal bar here, it still makes a higher high than any of these others. Even this one, I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check that before I tell you that story. No, it does not make a higher high there. So if you'd had a good signal bar there, you'd probably go short right there. But that signal bar's terrible. And then, of course, we run down and make another new low, and we reverse out of there. Now, there is a second entry long here. He did get the measured move. That was the other thing. This dash line is a measured move that's equal to the width of the original range. And so that's your likely target. So the fact that you made this 2-bar matching high here scares me on this one. Otherwise, maybe you take that trade, and you might still argue for it to be green. I would wait. It turns out to be a really nice move. I always talk about that. Those failed break lowers, they're often important lows or highs for the day if it's a failed break higher. And you can see that did turn out to be the low of the day. It didn't completely just take off, but that's still, even if you just got this move out of it, to the first, even just to the first bar it broke lower, you know, there's 10, 11 points there. So that's a nice move up. And then we're just kind of chopping sideways. Don't trade that. There's a failed breakout here. Signal bar is no good on my chart. If you had a really bearish bar, maybe you go short there. I'd still mark it green because it's a new high. You do get a lower high here, but there's not enough room to scalp out. It's not worth risking that. Let me just look at, see if it ends up getting enough. It does end up getting 2 points, but you can see to that low line it's only a point, and it's just too risky. And it bounced a few times. It ends up getting it, and that's probably what they were fighting for, to get that scalp out of that, and then it turns up. And you definitely don't want to go short there. But when this one breaks higher and fails and turns down, gives you that big bearish bar, I like going short on that one. And then you get a little, you get a move up, you get a close and a new high here and a bearish bar. There's a hidden second entry there, and you could actually treat that as a failed second entry long on a failed breakout. So we should come back into the range. So I like that one. And then this is just kind of a repeat pattern of this right here. It's almost a perfect repeat of it. Just go short again. And then suddenly it just reverses. And there's just really no way to catch that one. There's no setup there. I mean, yeah, you might say, hey, I want to be risky and go long right there, but you would expect prices to come to the other side, not turn in the middle. And it's not even turning right in the middle. I'm guessing what's happened is, even though this range was fairly structured here, it looks like to me it makes a new high like right in here. And then you can see why it probably reversed there, because it looks like now there's a midline there. And it's probably more like that right there. And you can see there is a midline there now. And so that would explain why it probably bounces there. And you do have to adjust these sometimes. I mean, as structured as that was up until that point, it's suddenly still a range, but the highs have just moved up some. And that happens sometimes. So don't lose sight of that. Just adjust your channel. And you can see this one takes off. And I think that's a big overshoot. It tries to go higher at least 3 times right there with that big bear. And it does make a new high as well. You get the close out, you get the overshoot, a close outside, move to a new high, and a big bearish bar. If you didn't enter there, I don't think I would enter here. It does break higher and turn down. That's mostly bullish. If you wanted to be a little aggressive, maybe you try it there. But if I hadn't have entered here, I would not enter here once it did that. I would sit and make sure I got what I had. And it does end up working, but you got to ride this little correction out here. And you have to do that sometimes. It's just, timing is everything on trying to catch a top like that. And that's why I tell most people that are not experienced chart readers, don't waste your time trying to pick these tops, because you'll end up losing more than anything. This is for much more advanced traders, so remember that. And then of course we bounce off the EMA, and this is basically a new high here. So you get a first entry, pull back. This is a second entry. This looks a little like one we had. Where was that? Somewhere there was a, oops. Somewhere there was a second entry there. I don't remember where it was. And of course, I messed this channel up by accidentally grabbing the wrong thing. Put it back where it was. And maybe that isn't where I had it. Yeah, I think we had a little failed breakout here earlier. I think I had it more like that right there. Yeah, and then you get your measured move down here. But yeah, maybe you take that one, and possible long right there. It's good for a scalp, nothing more. Comes back and runs the stops. Even if you kept it and never even moved your stop, it still comes back and runs it. And then it runs to a new high. There is a hidden second entry in there, but that signal bar is no good. You got your break now, move to a new high, and it just reverses. Unfortunately, there's no setup there. That's just a first entry as well. I don't think you want to enter there. It looks a little, you could say that looks a little congested, but we're still making a higher high and a higher low on every bar, so I wouldn't count that as congestion. That's a move up. So it's just the first entry. And then the bottom just falls out of it. And then you got this one, you get a move up, close outside. This one is very tempting, but we're not anywhere close to being back to the EMA. So there's a chance you could get trapped here or get caught in some congestion or something. I just sit this one out. It would have worked. You can see it gets, there's like 3 points, but as you would suspect, we're not through to the upside, and you see how hard it runs up. So this was, going short there is risky. It's 8 ticks, which is right now, the way today is probably relatively low risk, but I wouldn't risk it. I just think you got to wait because for prices to at least get back to the EMA. And we've already had the break and new low here, and so there's a good chance that we may still be, just going higher, period. And this does take us on into 2 o'clock or 2:30 and just keeps rising. So this turned out to be a pretty good move up. And unfortunately, you couldn't catch any of that because there's not a good enough setup here. You know, there's always people that say, okay, maybe you go long right here. That's a real long shot on a move that heavy. But, you know, they pay off sometimes. And if you'd have taken this, you'd have got a runner. Most likely. It actually would have come back and got any break-even runners, but if you'd have given it a little room, you could catch a runner on that and take that move up. But most, you know, me, I'm probably not going to give one that much back. I'm going to take my hit and look for another entry, and you don't get one, unfortunately. So there's pros and cons to every way you play it, and that's why I don't, you know, I don't do a lot of teaching on how to exit. How to exit is going to be more, your runners anyway, or it's going to be more about your personality. Because me, I can't stand to see myself get 4, 5, 6 ticks of profit, or I'm sorry, points of profit, only to watch it back up and take my break-even stop and stop me out. And I mean, you know, if you got 5 contracts on the runners and you got 6 points, well, that's 30 points of profit. That's a lot of profit to sit there and watch it evaporate and then take a hit on it. Even though you're only getting stopped out at break even or break even plus 1 or maybe just 1 tick, but that's still 5 contracts losing 1 tick plus the commissions. And I'm just not the type I can do that. I like to take my 5 or 6 points. And you figure, you know, if you only get 3 points and you got 5 runners, that's 15 points. That's a nice little profit, and you just put it away, and they add up fast. Versus giving it away. Now, on the other hand, you can argue that, hey, if you catch this move right here with 5 runners, and you don't exit, just to give you an example, because it's, let's just say you exit on the first bar that breaks below, that's 23.5 points times 5. That's over 100 points on one move. So there's pros and cons to doing it both ways. But this is what I will say, and leave it at this, and we'll wrap this day and week up. Whichever way you decide to handle it, always do it the same way. Be consistent, because if you try to pick and choose, when you think you're going to get stopped out, you'll get that runner. And when you think you're going to get a runner, you will get stopped out. It never fails. Don't ask me why. But if you try to pick and choose, you will get it wrong every single time. Every once in a while, you'll get lucky, and it'll keep you trying it. But for the most part, most of the time, you'll be wrong, because the ones that look weak turn out to be the really, I mean, why down here would you think this was going to run straight up like that? There's nothing here indicating that's going to happen. And so you're betting on, you're not betting on this big run here. And so you probably don't hold a runner, and boom, off it goes. But if you play it the same way every time, and you're going to catch some of those. And so you're better off to, however you decide to play it that way every time. If you're quick to take profits like me, be quick to take profits every single time, so that you don't give any back, and that you get your fair share of moves. But if you like to hold and try to get runners, try to hold and get runners every time, unless you're trading in these tight ranges. When you're trading in a I wouldn't call this a tight range, because you can see the trends inside it. And even this one's got some pretty good trends inside it. But when you get to tight range, like this one started out, I would say the range was more like this, and it kind of evolved as we went along. So when they're that tight, don't try to get a runner, because you don't have anywhere to go. I mean, it might break out and you might get lucky, but generally it's going to break out and fail, and you're not going to get a big runner. So that's what I call 2 or 3 points, tight runners. Don't try to tight ranges. Don't try to get runners on there, just like right in here. Don't try to get a runner in there. Now, if it's a big wide one like this, and you're getting good moves in there, like so or like so, yeah, you got room to get a runner in there. So you may try for one in there off of a key entry point, like this trend line or this trend line. But don't try to do it in tight ranges. Just go ahead and take your scalp and be done with it. Save yourself a lot of heartache. Get your profit and exit and look for another entry. So anyway, there it is, almost 30 minutes worth of a day. So I'm going to wrap it up. Hope you have a good weekend. Hope you have a good trading day tomorrow. Hope you learned something this week. The key to all this, you can learn this strategy and basically how to find these entries and read the chart and get the trends and stuff. You can do that in 6 months to a year. But to really be skilled at this, you need a lot of experience at the screen, actually trading live data, and that's what takes a while. And it takes much longer than most people think. It takes much longer than most people have the patience for, and that's why most people fail. They try to go live way too soon, and they just don't have the experience. Yeah, you got the strategy down, and you can find the trades, but you need a lot of live screen time trading live data. When I say live data, I mean live data coming right from the exchange, not replay. Sure, trade and replay, it will help, but it's nothing like trading live data. If you can do this trading live data on a simulator, there's no reason you can't do it trading real data, live data with real money, because you're trading the same thing. It's just one account has fake money and one account has real money. So there's no difference. If you can do it on the simulator with live data, you can do it with real money trading live data. Now you might have to adjust your thinking a little bit there, but it can be done. So and that's how you prove it to yourself, by doing it on the simulator with live data first. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Have a great weekend. We'll be back Monday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.